I could not stand one more second, tolerate one more second. There is no way that I could stay there for this address.
All right, now we're going to talk about Trump's address in front of Congress and the unhinged fallout and reaction to it from some people on the left. I watched the full speech this morning. I did not stay up and watch it last night. If I'm being so for real with y'all, a 9 p.m. start time, yeah, I'm checked out of politics by that point in the night. But I watched it this morning. I did watch on 2X because, God, it's so annoying how every sentence people stop and clap for like 15 seconds. So if you were to watch that on normal speed, it would take so long to get through. But anyway, I watched the speech, have a lot of thoughts on it, saw the very lame and pathetic disruptions and protests from Democrats. We'll start there, then we'll talk about the substance of the speech. So just a couple minutes in, Al Green, a Democratic member of Congress, gets up and disrupts the speech and starts shouting in a truly pathetic display. Take a look at the clip.
Mr. Green, take your seat. Take your seat, sir. Take your seat. Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
Now, Trump had literally barely even started speaking and had certainly not said anything particularly controversial or inflammatory yet. But he was immediately disrupted with childish antics where this guy had to literally be removed by the sergeant at arms. How anyone thought that was like going to be a cute little thing for Democrats to do, like that was going to be a good look for them, is beyond me. But some people actually ate that up. Hassan Piker tweeted, "Every Democrat should be exactly like this. Respect to Al Green." Left-wing journalist Mehdi Hassan tweeted, "One by one, every Democrat should heckle like Green and be proudly thrown out by him." Stephen Bonnell, aka Destiny, the left-wing streamer, tweeted a picture of Al Green and said, "More of this," and also wrote, "This isn't even a real State of the Union. It's just an effing campaign rally. The Dems should disrupt until every one of them is kicked out of Congress. This is effing absurd." So prominent progressive pundits thought he ate with that, really thought he was like doing amazing, whereas normal, sane people, even ones who aren't necessarily fans of Trump, thought it was a dumb, childish stunt that accomplished nothing. You couldn't even hear anything he was saying because he wasn't mic'd up, and just came across as petulant and childlike. And apparently that's how most Americans felt. Even CNN's flash polling, which is not like amazing exact polling, but gives you a general sentiment of how people felt, found almost everyone didn't like this.
Wanting to get reaction on Congressman Al Green's antics and being ejected, 80% of speech watchers said that the Democratic congressman's interrupting of Trump's speech was inappropriate. Only 20% of speech watchers thought what Green did was appropriate.
Now, I will point out that the sample of who tunes into the speech does tend to skew towards people of that party. So this was probably a more Republican sample than just the general population, but still, 80% is a strong figure. And I bet even a majority of independents and Democrats would find that behavior childish and obnoxious, not somehow brave and stunning. Like some of these Democratic members were like, "I walked out."
I just came off the House floor. I could not stand one more second, tolerate one more second. There is no way that I could stay there for this address. It is insult to injury, the lies and the propaganda.
And it's like, congrats. Do you want a cookie? Like, okay, no one noticed or cared. Some of them also like wore pink or held up silly little looking signs. And I'm like, oh no, how will Trump ever recover? It's just, it's all kind of silly to me. Now, these speeches, the State of the Unions, and this one wasn't technically a State of the Union, but it was basically like the same thing. They do turn into these kind of partisan call and responses where who are you going to stand and clap for this line or not becomes sort of a dumb, like, political watcher game. And even in these speeches, traditionally, there are some points that a president will make that even the other side will stand up and clap for. So, like, there were a few things Biden said last year that actually Republicans got up and applauded, because sometimes they just say things that everyone should support, like, or call out extremely sympathetic people. And in this case, Trump called out a 13-year-old boy with terminal brain cancer who always dreamed of being a police officer, who they made an honorary member of the Secret Service. Very sweet, very cute story. And almost none of the Democrats stood or clapped for this child. I'm sorry, y'all, but that is such crazy partisanship. Like, you can't just applaud the 13-year-old kid with the brain cancer? It's not a political point. You're not even applauding Trump. You're celebrating the kid. I mean, they also didn't, for example, stand up and honor the parents of Laken Riley, the woman killed by an illegal immigrant. And I think they should, but at least that one is like, okay, well, we don't want to play into his partisan framing of the immigration issue or something. I can at least understand why some of them wouldn't do it. But y'all really can't stand for the kid with the cancer. Now, that's how anti-Trump we're going to be. Sorry, that's deranged. As for the speech itself, I'll say that I think Trump leaned into a lot of the 80-20 issues he has in his favor, or 70-30 issues, things that, at least at the surface level, most people agree with. He talked about securing the border. He talked about ending divisive, discriminatory DEI practices, about turning the page on wokeness, and a whole host of other things, keeping males out of women's sports, stuff that most common sense people would probably nod along to. But let's not kid ourselves that this was a flawless speech. I mean, you can Google a fact check of it and you will find many things that he said that were misleading or not true. It's kind of typical Trumpian fashion. And he made there's plenty of criticisms you can make, right? Without the childish antics, without the refusing to clap for the cancer kid, you can point out that he made factually false claims. Like he said, for example, that Biden had the worst inflation perhaps in American history. That's just objectively not true. It was pretty bad, but we've had significantly worse. He pushed this very misleading narrative about people over 150 years old who are collecting Social Security benefits. That's been debunked. There are some issues there with the outdated data in that system, but they automatically cut off payments to people at 115. Now, maybe it should be sooner than that, of course, but he's just very sloppy with a lot of the claims that he makes. And to be clear, it was a partisan speech. It was one that very explicitly crapped on Democrats and promoted himself and his political party, which is, at least historically, not the tone that is considered appropriate for these kinds of speeches. Though I think with politics, we are in kind of uncharted territory these days on a whole host of things. You could point out, and I certainly believe this, that a lot of the promises he made in this speech are simply unrealistic. He is not going to balance the federal budget like he promised, which, gosh, I hope I am wrong. If he did that, I would absolutely praise him for it. But he's pushing massive tax cuts, which, whether you support them or not, make it harder to balance the budget, and only supports some forms of spending cuts on like waste and fraud, but you could never actually balance the budget without cutting entitlements, without cutting Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, all this stuff that he says he doesn't want to touch. So it's just not realistic. He didn't get anywhere close last time, and there's no real reason to believe he will this time. There's more, of course, but I'm just saying, if you want to criticize Trump over this speech, there's plenty of material there. But why do they always have to do it in the most unhinged and dramatic and partisan ways imaginable? That's the part that I simply don't, and I don't think I ever will, understand. But what do you guys think? Did you watch the speech? Did you like it? And what did you make of the Democratic antics? Do let me know in the comments.